All right, shalom, shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Dash. I want to say and give double honors to the apostles and the bishop elders, a great millstone for teaching this word in truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to the elect, Lord willing, we're some of those men and women. Hey, I'm the brother Gabar Yahweh from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another lesson. And this lesson was inspired by this video that I'm watching. It's entitled Trump Answers Press Questions on Deadly DC Plane Crash. And one thing I noticed, this man is full of himself, man. Every time he gets up to speak, it doesn't matter what topic it's about, he always got to interject and speak about himself. Okay? And Trump is nothing more than a reintroducing of white supremacy. And then we try to tell you people who listen, right, that this man is going to show his horns. He's going to show his complete hatred that he has for you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? Because he has one, okay? And, they're using different methods, right? They're attacking the so-called DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they're making it, there's no proof that a diversity hire had anything to do with that plane crash that happened last night with between a helicopter and an airplane. Now, I watch enough private pilot videos, people who operate vehicles, people who operate airplanes, right? Who own their own personal airplane. And I always notice that air traffic control are constantly monitoring with all pilots, right? Even within a mile or even 5 miles, sometimes 12 miles of the pilot. If there's any air traffic in there, you're going to hear it on the controller, right? And being an air traffic controller is not an easy job in the sense that it takes a lot of understanding, right? Aeronautical understanding. So they're not just going to put anybody in that parole. But what this guy is doing at any given time, he using any situation to attack certain points, right? The whole DEI thing, which they try to make it a black thing, right? A so-called black thing. Well, we got too many Negroes in here. We got too many Latinos in this office. They try to make it a black or Latino thing. But the DEI, it goes beyond just the color of your skin. And J.D. Vance going to speak about this, which it kind of sounds like a little forked tongue, right? Claiming that people are hired or turned away because of their color of their skin. And that ends today under Trump, right? Which that plane crash was, if it really happened, if 2 people really died, a lot of people are responsible for that, including people who work in the air traffic control over Washington, D.C., because they should have saw it coming on a computer, right? Everybody can see, even pilots can see these other planes in their area. So for something like this to happen, obviously accidents happen, but again, air traffic control is a highly controlled environment, no pun intended, okay? And a lot of people don't understand it, but this man is going to use all his means to attack people of so-called color, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, right? When you look up by race, real quick, look up the demographics by race who are in these roles, it's more white people than anybody, right? It's more so-called white people than anybody, right? It says air traffic controller demographics by race. The most common ethnicity among air traffic controllers is white, which makes up 59.6% of all air traffic controllers, comparative to 17.6% air traffic controllers are Hispanic or Latino, and 9.9% of air traffic controllers are black or African American, right? And that typically goes for like when you go into the Caribbean islands, you go into South America, you're gonna hear more Latino or so-called black people on a call. Again, I watch enough private plane owners flying their planes all throughout America and outside of America, and you can hear the demographics. You always going to hear Edomites when you're in America. You 9 times out of 10, you always going to hear an Edomite on an air traffic controller mic. You're not going to hear a so-called Negro, Latino, somebody with an accent talking. You rarely hear that. Rarely hear that. All right. So for them to complain, for them to supposedly uh, blame a DIE hire for what happened is unfounded. So let me play this real quick, and I'll get some precepts.
At the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir, and we'll stand by you on that. Thank you. JD, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I just want to reemphasize something the President said, and you've heard from the Secretary of Transportation and of Defense. There really was a whole of government response. We were all on the phone. We were all communicating yesterday, trying to get to the bottom of this immediately, but also try to communicate with the American people about what happened. Something the President said that I think bears reemphasizing, which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means, on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control, and we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job. If you
they basically trying to say that people of color aren't competent of doing the job. First of all, we don't know who did what. There's nobody's been blamed yet, right? No particular one person has been blamed, but they're bringing this race shit out. It's just all fomenting this whole underbelly of white supremacy. And apostles, from the apostles to the bishop, elders, the brothers on down, been telling you, warning you, this man is going to take off that cloak that he's been wearing of all love and acceptance, and he's going to show you what kind of devil he is. Because this world is all about white supremacy. Edomite supremacy.
Back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority.
So you can't sue the government no more. You can't sue the government no more because you've been turned away because of the color of your skin. But again, you see the most about race, people who are in air traffic control are white people. Just like the majority of private pilot license individuals in America are white. You got people of color, but it's a very small amount. But they're just looking for any reason to blame Jake. That's why the scripture says, Revelation 12:12, therefore rejoice ye heavens and ye that dwell there in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth he hath but a short time. And the devil is Esau, Edom, right? Starting with the so-called elite families, right? Them banking families, on down to their rulers, on down to their officers, right? These are the Edomites. They're the deceivers, right? It says in the NLT, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who live in the heavens rejoice. But terror will come on earth and in the sea, for the devil has come down to you in great anger, knowing his time is he has little time. And this man is angry, right? His anger is shown. His perpetual anger that he has for you, Jakes, because they ain't going to say black, Latino, Native Americans. They're going to say that outwardly, but they're going to attack you, right? Just because you are. They're attacking your level of intellect, right? Saying that you're not smart enough or you don't have the mental capacity to direct traffic in the air, you know? Or the mental capacity to achieve anything. Like you always need this devil over you, man. I'm looking for a precept. Just bear with me, man. This is the book of Ezekiel 35:5. Because a lot of our people are under the guise that this man loves you. And in reality, he hates you, right? And they looking for an opportunity to show that hatred. Ezekiel 35:5, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, and the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, blood shall pursue thee. And this is a threat, this is a promise, a prophecy against Mount Seir, Esau, Edom, right? Which this guy is an Edomite, right? He's an Edomite, right? And he's all about white supremacy. His wife is an Elamite. She's all about white supremacy. Trump, he's a white supremacist, a so-called white supremacist. And you can tell by their actions. And they're just looking for a reason to attack these things that kind of like gave you so-called people of color a leg up, which that DIE shit, it really helped a lot of ABC people, right? Right? It helped them type of people. Right? It elevated people with a base mindset, lifestyle to high positions. And that was done on purpose. Just like the opening of them borders during the time of Biden. That was all a setup for what we have today so that they can make laws and use precedents to establish these laws. That's why the scripture says this, right? Because they flame his mischief by deceit, right? Salakia. I really have a hard time spelling these words, so just bear with me. Right? Psalms 94 and 20. Psalms 94 and 20. Psalms chapter 94, verse 20. Right? It says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law? And that's what Esau does. Right? Let's look up that word for mischief. Right? In the Hebrew word there is aimal. Right? Aimal, which is trouble. Right? Toil, labor. Right? This is what this greed, pain, wickedness. Right? That's what they do. They frame your stuff by law. They establish mischief by law. Right? In the NLT it says, can unjust leaders claim that the Most High is on their side? Leaders whose decrees permit injustice. And that's what's happening right now. You see their immigration laws that they establish. They're just kicking any Jake out that look Spanish, that speak Spanish, that look like they come from South America. You got Native Americans being grabbed up and harassed by ICE. You got people from Puerto Rico being grabbed up and harassed by ICE, right? So that's on purpose. All this is being done on purpose because this is how they get down, right? Another precept, Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1 says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, right? Woe meaning destruction unto you that do these things. In the NLT, it says, what sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws, right? Because all of these laws are aimed at Jake. Now, we understand Jacob trouble is supposed to happen. So that's the reason why these things are happening. The Lord is about to wrap this thing up, but it still don't take the guilty away, the guilt away from these Edomites. Because all they're trying to do when they say make America great again is bring back what they call white supremacy, where you so-called Negroes, Latinos wouldn't get preferential treatment within their society and their system, right? Where the wealthy dictate the laws, right? And they always use it to benefit themselves, okay?
Of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President. But on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control, and we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job.
And again, they use these things as precedents. We don't know if this shit was real. We don't know if this shit was staged and real. We don't know if it was staged. We don't know anything about this. All you see something on the news and bam, here it is. And it's all because somebody who lacked proper intelligence didn't know how to operate air control. Come on, man, get the fuck out of here, bro. You got thousands of planes in the air at one given time, at any given time, both private and public and military, right? So you trying to tell me somebody who was just simple-minded, feeble-minded, just made a mistake. Now, mistakes happen, but it don't necessarily mean that it's an attack on that person's intelligence. You know, night flying is extremely dangerous, right? But they have protocols, they have set standards, aeronautical standards to prevent a lot of that from happening, especially with a helicopter and a airplane, because they fly at different rates. Okay, so and then airplanes have alarms. Like if a aircraft is getting too close to another aircraft, it's gonna go off. Plus the autopilot. They got autopilots in these planes. Majority of these planes have autopilots. Where the autopilot, if another plane is coming, the autopilot is gonna take over and move the plane out the way if at all possible. So people don't know these things because y'all don't look into these things, right? You just sit there, like the scripture says right here, man. It's simple, believeth every word, man. Right? The simple believe every word, right? Anything that somebody tell you, you just believe it, right? Right? Anything somebody say, you just run with it, right? Instead of looking into it, right? And that's the problem with most people. This is Proverbs 14 and 15. The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his goings, right? Proverbs 7 and 7. And I beheld among the simple ones, I discern among the youths a young man void of understanding. And the majority of people, particularly in America, are void of understanding. And they don't see the trap that they're being thrown into. All right? They don't see the dissension that's being fomented right in front of them. Right now, I'm not saying we're supposed to get together with these people, no. But this is the beginning. It's only going to get worse from here. Right? And this is the judgment from the Lord. Ultimately, because these Edomites, they're not supreme in any way, in thought, in body, in spirit, and they're just not superior at all, right? But because they're in power, they get to push that.
If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, on DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been.
It could have been. So it's not even a fact. It's not even a fact, bro. Right? But leave it to Esau. The white man has the highest level of intelligence on the earth. Let him tell it. Right? You got something called race and intelligence. Discussion on race and intelligence, specifically regarding claims of differences in intelligence among racial lines, have appeared on both popular science and academic research since the modern concept of race was introduced. With an inception of IQ testing in the early 20th century, differences in average test performance between racial groups have been observed. Though these differences have fluctuated and in many cases steadily decreased over time, contemplating issues, complicating the issue. Modern science has concluded that race is a socially constructed phenomenon rather than a biological reality. Yeah, because if you make the laws, if you make the test hard for one people and easy for another, that's not indicative of your intelligence, right? The IQ test is bullshit too. In particular, the validity of IQ testing as a metric for human intelligence is disputed. Today, the scientific consensus is that genetics does not explain differences in IQ, test performances between groups, and that observed and differences in environmental origins. Exactly. Got something called a bell curve, right? They came up with the bell curve, and they try to make it sound like these small hats are more intelligent. It says Ashkenazi J intelligence, often colloquially referred to as Jewish genius, is the stereotype that Ashkenazi Jays tend to have a higher intelligence than other ethnic groups. It says, in response to the controversy sparked by the publication of the Bell Curve in 1994, a 1995 task force by the American Psychological Association found that the racial and ethnic groups often have just as much or more variability of intelligence test performance within the groups than between groups. Other courses of the subsequent decades and consensus has emerged In the scientific community that ethnic or racial differences in average intelligence test performances are not due to genetic differences between groups. But you can't tell this guy that, right? Talking about we want the smartest people, we want the best people, right? But see, they use nepotism to hire their own, to put their own, which is nothing wrong with nepotism. You want to hire your people, you hire your people. But don't try to force the notion that people are unintelligent or intelligent to put them in certain roles. And this is the reason for accidents happening. Instead of just realizing, like, look, accidents happen, this is a bad situation, we're going to look into it for further evidence. What did he do? He come out lying. He come out swinging with the BS. Okay? They come out swinging with the BS. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring this out. I saw, I was just sitting here and listening to this man talk, and as much as I hear this dude talk, I just like, yo, they're nothing but white supremacists, bruh. And they just looking for reasons to attack Jake, but it's a part of prophecy. It's supposed to happen. This man is a hater. He's a known hater. And the Lord's going to show you who's on the highest level when he sent his son, Yahweh Shai, back to receive his people and destroy his enemies. And stab and say, Shalom, on to the next.